Hey everyone, this is JG. We're in Raid Shadow Legends, and tonight we're talking about Lightning Cage. So I've been wanting to make some more content about soulstones and blessings and what blessings to choose, but one of the things that's been holding me back is there are a couple of blessings that I'm not sure yet just how good they are. That's because they have some really complicated skill text, and I'm not totally sure what they do in practice. The biggest two are Lightning Cage and Ward of the Fallen. Exactly how the mechanics stack, I think, is important to knowing how good they are. And I keep Googling it every couple days, but I can't find any content creator that's done a deep dive on these or a thorough playtest that really gives me an answer about what they do. So, unfortunately, Ward of the Fallen requires a higher awakening than what I have on my account, so I'm not able to test that one. But tonight, we're going to test out Lightning Cage really thoroughly in Doom Tower and figure out exactly what the mechanics do. So I've got 5 key questions here. Let's walk through the text and I'll tell you what those are. Whenever an enemy receives a buff or has their turn meter filled, places 1 lightning orb stack on this champion. Question number 1. An AoE buff, does that count as 1 buff or 5 buffs, 4 buffs, depending on the size of the party? An AoE buff that provides 2 buffs at the same time, does that count as 1 buff, 2 buffs, 10 buffs? So that's one thing I need to test. When activated, a lightning orb stack randomly protects one other active buff from being removed, stolen, or transferred. After activation, the lightning orb stack disappears. A champion can have a maximum of 3 lightning orb stacks at one time. Whenever a champion with 3 lightning orb stacks hits enemy targets, inflicts bonus damage to them based on their max HP. Bonus damage can occur on each hit of a skill, but does not count as an extra hit. After the bonus damage is applied, all active lightning orb stacks are removed from this champion. Put that together with the level 1 text here. Gains 1 lightning orb stack whenever an enemy receives a buff. Lightning orb stacks have a 50% chance to protect a random buff being stolen, removed, or transferred. Question 2 is, how does that 50% chance stack when you have multiple lightning orb stacks? So if you have 3 stacks, is that 3 independent 50% chances, which means an 87.5% chance to protect a buff? Or is it 50% at 3 stacks? Or is it additive, 150% chance, guaranteed if you have 2 or more stacks that you'll protect something from being stolen? So that's one thing I want to test. Another thing, I've noticed that lightning orbs show up looking like a regular buff, and with the typical number on them that indicates how many turns are remaining. I just want to confirm that these don't tick down when you take your turn. I wouldn't expect them to, but since they look like a buff, let's test that. Question 4. This bonus damage. Bonus damage inflicted by each lightning orb stack is equivalent to 2% of an enemy champion's max HP or 1% of a boss's max HP. Important question. Does that ignore defense in part or in full? That's going to make a big difference in the total amount of damage it does. Question number 5. It says here, bonus inflicted by each stack is equivalent to 2% of an enemy champion's max HP. So what does that each stack and this text here that it can occur on each hit of a skill? What does that mean? So if you have 3 stacks and you hit twice, does each stack deal its bonus damage on each hit? So you get 6 total procs of this? Or does it only proc once for each hit? So maybe 2 total procs, and then your 3rd stack just disappears. If it's an AoE hit, you're hitting 5 champions and you have 3 stacks. Is it 3 procs of this on every target that you hit? Is it 3 procs of this total across the entire field? Important detail. That makes the difference between dealing 2% damage, 6% damage, 6% damage times 5 champions, maybe 12 or 18% if you have multi-hit skills. That's a huge difference in the damage output of this. So what we have here, my Helicath, you can see I have thrown Lightning Cage on him. Normally he has Brimstone, but I'm switching him to Lightning Cage for some testing. Going to spend some gems to switch him back. So I'm spending gems for the people tonight to give you answers about how this blessing works. All you content creators with test server access, frustrated with you that you didn't give us the thorough test on this, that we really need to understand the value of this blessing. That said, let's dive in and see how this works. All right, here we are with Helicath in floor 7 of the current Doom Tower rotation, and this will give us a couple of our answers here. So let's see what happens right out of the gate, we get a AoE double buff. It added only one turn there. We got a second turn when this second champion threw up continuous heal. So AoE and multi-buff skills do not grant more than one lightning orb stack. So each skill looks like it can only do one lightning orb stack. So that makes a big difference. One lightning orb stack per turn, more or less, from your enemies. All right, we're in floor 19 here. Wave 1 has Madame in it. That's a great way to test how well this protects buffs when we have multiple stacks. So let's check it out here. We'll throw on block damage. We get one stack from Shaman's first skill there. All right, so there's a lot going on here. So one of the places that we get extra stacks in this particular wave is Madame at the start of every turn has that passive skill that gives her a shield. So that's why we've got 2 stacks currently. There we see the actually the A1 from Shaman. Looks like it just successfully stole one of our buffs. Let's see. There's a lot going on here. Let's see. Madame should use her skill next. So we've got 2 stacks. Just going to increase it to 3 right here, and then look at that. She succeeded in stripping the buff anyway, so that means it's definitely not additive. It is possible for her to strip buffs when you have 3 stacks. I think that probably means it's just a flat 50%, because otherwise it's a 1 in 8 chance, and we just saw the 1 in 8 chance proc right out of the gate. I'm going to run this through a couple dozen times. I won't make you watch it, but I'll get back to you and let you know what my math says. All right, after a little math on this, I measured how often I saw buffs get stripped at when I have 1 stack, 2 stacks, and 3 stacks. Honestly, all of them are fairly close to 50%. So 3 stacks is the one where we'd really expect to see a really low success rate here if it's 50% per stack. What we see is Madame succeeded in stripping the buffs 43% of the time, where we'd expect it to be more like 12.5. The confidence interval that I have on this for a 95% confidence interval says that 12.5 is out of the realm of likelihood here. So I think that's a pretty definitive. I would gather a few dozen more samples to be completely positive, but it looks to me like this means no matter how many stacks you have, you've only got a 50% chance of protecting any given buff strip or any given buff steal. So that definitely makes Lightning Cage a little less powerful at the lower level, but I think it's level 5 where it comes to 75%. That difference will be pretty noticeable. The other thing I noticed in doing this is question 3 about whether the Lightning Cage ticks down when you take a turn. It definitely does not. So it's a sticky buff. It looks like a buff, but it doesn't behave completely like a buff. So we can see that here in just a moment when I get my second turn. All right, so we're at 2 stacks right now. Helicath is about to get a turn. All right, 2 stacks. Let's throw out a skill, and still at two stacks. So they don't disappear by taking a turn. That's good. All right, now here we are in floor 15. This is a good place for us to test how the damage produces from these. So let's see. We take 1 turn, and then we've got 3 different single buffs on there. So by the time we get our second turn, we've got a full 3 stacks. It's a great time to test what happens with the damage here. So let's see how many stacks of damage we get out of an A1. All right, I saw a 359 pop up. I think that's this 2% damage. That is not a very impressive value, and I only saw it once. So let's try this a couple more times and see if we see it happen any more times. All right, that time I saw 359 twice. So that's That's interesting. Let's see. I feel like I want to play around with that a little bit more. This time I also see I have weaken placed from my first hit one. Let's hit this same guy again. Okay, we see 449 pop up twice that time. So that means weaken is capable of increasing the damage here. I really suspect that means this is sensitive to defense, but damage will go up with weaken and drop defense. Let me switch the team real quick. Let's put a defense dropper in there and see if we see some different values. So Helicath, and let's do Duke the Pierced. Get AoE drop defense out there. Okay, so we'll hit this one again. He's got weaken and drop defense. 903 that time. I saw 2 903s. So that definitely means dropping defense made the damage go up, which should mean that defense is making this value go down. As for how much damage it is, let me jump into a spreadsheet real quick and let's compute that. We've seen 903, 359, and 449. Let's see what we can compute about what those values are. So I threw these values into a spreadsheet. I also tested this with some brimstone procs on the same champion, because since my previous research showed that completely ignores defense, that gives us a really fine bead on exactly how much HP they have. So we've got 104,000 total HP on that lizard man that we kept hitting. And so then looking at the numbers we're seeing from War Master and from Lightning Cage, they're all consistent with that. And so we've got a defense in the ballpark of like 5,500, 5,530, something like that. So basically what we come out from the raw damage of Lightning Cage, the advertised 2%, that's 2,099 raw damage, which after damage reduction gets you this value between like 450 and 900, depending on whether you have debuffed and weakened it appropriately. So basically the conclusion is it's getting absolute full damage reduction from the defense. So it's not ignoring defense, it's not ignoring a piece of defense. Definitely Lightning Cage has to deal with the full effects of defense, although it is able to be boosted with weaken or decreased defense. Next thing I want to test now is AoE hits. So from trying this a few times, I saw it proc either once or twice, never 3 times on this champion. I'm not sure why we're seeing it once on a 2-hit skill. That doesn't make a ton of sense to me. But let's check it out in AoE and see if that looks any different. All right, here we are set up for Helicath's AoE. I'm going to come this to ×1 just to make sure I see all the numbers fly by. And let's see what we get. All I saw there was that 449 number crop up again twice on the rightmost champion. That doesn't make a lot of sense to me because the AoE only hits once, so I don't know why we'd get 2 procs on the same champion. I didn't see any procs on the other one. So I'm going to run this a few more times and see what else we can figure out. Alright, so I played this a bunch of times. I watched a bunch of the replays of this. It's definitely weird, the behavior that we're seeing, but I think I understand what's happening now. So I have only ever seen 1 or 2 stacks of damage from the Lightning Cage. And what I noticed is when you get the second damage proc, it's when it happens at the exact same time as War Master. So if War Master also procs, then you get the second stack of damage. I can't see that it has anything to do with how many hits you have on your skill. I have to say, I think that might be a bug. it would certainly seem funky that it counts War Master as a second hit, but not an actual second hit. As for where you get stacks on an AoE skill, they actually pop up on the enemy that you click on. So I haven't seen it proc on any of the other side enemies, but it does reliably proc that bonus damage on the one that you click on. So for example, we're going to click right here, second from the left, and you're going to see 1 or 2 stacks. Well, you'll see either 1 stack by itself or 2 stacks plus War Master all at the same time. There we go, 449, one all by itself this time around. Like I said, this strikes me as probably not quite the way that they intended it to work. It may be a bug, but certainly as it exists right now, I don't see any way that you can get all 3 procs from your 3 lightning cage stacks. You don't proc it against multiple enemies at once. So you get 2 to 4% at this current awakening level of additional damage from this. So this is a really modest effect, and honestly, the fact that you do modest damage and then you lose your lightning cage stacks, I think makes it a little bit less reliable. So overall, from testing all these elements, I have to say I'm kind of underwhelmed here, especially at lower awakening levels. It's not super reliable, even with multiple stacks at actually blocking buffs from being removed from you. The bonus damage is not very impressive, and it just procs the very first hit you make, and then all the stacks go away, and your buffs are vulnerable again. With AoE buffs, you don't throw on a bunch of these really quickly. You only get 1 per enemy skill. Actually, I'm curious if you had like an apothecary skill where it's both turn meter and buff at the same time, whether it would count those independently. I don't have it to the high enough awakening level where turn meter fill is creating stacks for me right now, so that's a test for another day. So overall, I'm not super impressed by this. That said, one last place where I think I want to give this a run is in Hydra. Hydra's a place where the Hydras are buffing themselves a fair amount, and max HP, max enemy HP based hits have the potential to be valuable. So let's test it out there real quick and see if the damage is respectable enough to be interesting. All right, here we are in normal Hydra, normal because that's how I roll. And let's just try this out real quick, see if we can get some buffs flying around, get some lightning cage stacks up here, and see what that does. All right, that's 1 stack up. There we go, 2. There we go, 3 stacks on Helicath. So let's, when he gets a turn, pick a target and see how it does. All right, I think I saw 44-34 twice, and then a 17,000, which is probably the War Master hit. Underwhelming. Yeah, I'm not super impressed here. So overall, I don't think that Lightning Cage is something I'm very excited about. But if you've been wondering just what happens here, I think we figured it out for you. Now, excuse me for a minute. I'm going to get Brimstone back on my Helicath, because get me out of this terrible Lightning Cage blessing. And we're done. 300 gems spent for science. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope you have a better understanding of what Lightning Cage does now. If you like this, I do try to do a lot of content like this, math and analysis and things that aren't replicated by other content creators out there. Would love it if you like or subscribe to this, and you'll see more of the same in the future. Thanks for watching. JG out.